Today, we're tackling, well, maybe the biggest question there is the mind-body problem.
It's a classic.
Right. For centuries, people have wondered how our thoughts or feelings, this, vivid inner world we all have, how does that fit with just nerve cells, molecules?
How does the ghost fit in the machine, basically? But what's exciting is that after decades of work, we're actually starting to see the shape of an answer emerge.
More than just defining the mystery.
Exactly. So our mission here is to really dive into one specific theory, the multiple drafts model. It's quite counterintuitive, actually. It suggests a lot of what we think we know about our inner life. It's a kind of cognitive illusion, a useful one, mind you.
Okay, and that's a key point, isn't it? We're not trying to explain consciousness away.
No, not at all. We're trying to explain how it works, how it arises from brain activity, looking at it as a set of physical effects, really, functional activities.
So to start unpacking that, we kind of have to confront the old idea, the one that feels so right, the Cartesian theater.
Ah, yes. Descartes' legacy. It's incredibly seductive, that image.
Can you sort of sketch that out? Why does it feel so natural?
Well, it's the idea that everything coming into our senses, sights, sounds, pain, memories, it all gets channeled to one special place in the brain.
The little screening room.
Exactly. A screening room with a single viewer, the me, watching the show unfold. Descartes famously thought the pineal gland was the spot. So it sets up this idea of a single finish line where information arrives, gets ordered, and then becomes conscious.
And that really does match how it feels subjectively. Like I'm sitting here watching the world happen in sequence.
It absolutely feels that way. But once you take out the spooky stuff, the actual conscious soul, the res cogitans.
The ghost.
Right, the ghost. Then you have a huge problem. Functionally, there's just no place in the brain that works like that. No central CPU, no single gateway. The brain is massively parallel.
So that theater model, even a non-ghostly version, it falls apart biologically.
Similarly flawed, yeah.
Yeah.
We needed a different way to think about it.
Okay, so if there's no central theater, what's the alternative? How do we get this unified feeling from all these parallel processes?
And that's where the multiple drafts model comes in. It flips the script. Instead of one finish line, think of many parallel tracks. All mental activity, all perception. It's this continuous process of interpretation, of elaboration happening all across the brain.
Like different editors working on different stories simultaneously.
Sort of, yeah. Information is constantly under editorial revision, as Dennett puts it. There's no single moment or place where something suddenly becomes conscious.
Okay, I like that phrase, continuous editorial revision. So the experience we end up reporting, that's not the raw feed, it's the draft that won out.
Yeah.
The one that propagated most effectively through the system.
That's the idea. It's the version that gets published, you could say. And the evidence that our brain does this kind of constant rewriting, it's really quite striking. It messes with our sense of time.
Okay, let's get into that evidence. The color 5 phenomenon sounds intriguing.
It's simple, but the implications are huge. Imagine you see a red spot flash on a screen.
Okay.
Then, just milliseconds later, a green spot flashes nearby.
Right.
What people report seeing consistently is not two separate flashes. They see one spot that moves from the first position to the second. And this is the kicker. It changes color from red to green midway through its path.
Whoa, okay. But how? If consciousness just registers things in order, how can the brain know about the green spot before it happens to paint the path green?
Precisely the paradox. The information about the green spot hasn't even technically arrived and been processed yet when the brain seems to be using it to construct the experience of the spot already changing color. The Cartesian theater just can't handle this.
So how does multiple drafts explain it? There were those two rather memorable explanations, Stalinesque and Orwellian.
Right. Those are the two ways you could imagine a standard system faking it, though the multiple drafts model ultimately says the distinction is meaningless here. But let's look at them.
Okay, Stalinesque first.
The Stalinesque idea is like censorship before the event. The brain gets the red spot signal, gets the green spot signal, holds onto them for a bit, edits them together into the moving, color-changing spot story, and then releases that edited version to your conscious awareness. There's a delay you're not aware of.
A pre-experiential cover-up.
Yeah.
Creating a smooth narrative before I experience it.
Exactly. Now, the Orwellian way is different. It suggests you do consciously experience the red spot instantly. But then, milliseconds later, when the green spot info comes in, the brain goes back, erases the memory of just the red spot, and replaces it with the memory of the moving, color-changing spot.
So a retroactive memory rewrite. Like changing the historical record after the fact.
Precisely. Now, here's the crucial point for multiple drafts. From your perspective as the subject experiencing this.
It feels exactly the same either way. Smooth motion, mid-path color change.
Right. You absolutely cannot tell if your brain did a Stalin-esque pre-edit or an Orwellian post-edit. And the multiple drafts model says, because there's no way to distinguish and no functional difference to the system, there is no fact of the matter about whether the revision happened before or after consciousness on this tiny timescale.
Wow. So the question, when exactly did it become conscious, is the wrong question.
It's ill-posed, yeah. Consciousness isn't about a specific moment of arrival in a specific place. It's about which draft of reality becomes dominant and available to guide behavior and report.
That really pulls the rug out from under the idea of a simple linear flow of experience. And if color-fi messes with time, you mentioned the cutaneous rabbit messes with our sense of where things happen.
Oh, this one is fantastic. It's about touch. Imagine someone taps you quickly, at first on your wrist, then a bit later near your elbow, then a bit later on your upper arm.
Okay, 3 distinct taps.
You'd think. But what people feel is a series of taps that seem to be hopping evenly up the arm, like a little rabbit. The taps feel like they're at points between the actual stimulation points.
So the brain is filling in the gaps, or actually moving the perceived location of the earlier taps.
It seems to be retrospectively adjusting the location of the earlier taps based on where the later taps land. It's constructing the most plausible narrative, equidistant hops, even though that means revising where you felt the first tap after the third tap has already occurred.
Good grief. So our sense of both time and space in our immediate experience is a reconstruction, a best guess narrative built after the fact.
A useful fiction built on the fly.
Okay, but if our own introspection, our feeling of what's happening moment to moment, is this unreliable, this constructed narrative, how can we possibly study consciousness scientifically? We can't just ask people what they felt, right? Because that feeling might be the edited version.
Exactly. That's a huge methodological challenge. And the proposed answer is something called heterophenomenology.
Heterophenomenology. Okay.
It basically says we have to approach this scientifically from a third-person perspective. We take what the subject says about their experience, their report of how it seems to them, but we don't automatically assume it's a literal, accurate description of events in their brain or even of their raw experience.
So we treat their words as data, as a kind of text.
Precisely. We treat their verbal report as a highly authoritative text produced by their cognitive system. Think of it like a piece of fiction generated by the brain. Our job isn't to ask, is this report true? Our job is to analyze the world described in that report. What are its rules? What are its contents?
That sounds almost like being an anthropologist studying a culture's myths.
That's a perfect analogy. Imagine you're studying a tribe that deeply believes in a forest god they call, say, Phenomene.
Okay.
Now you, the scientist, you probably don't believe Phenomene actually exists out there in the forest.
Right. Agnostic at best.
But you have to take the tribe's reports about Phenomene incredibly seriously. You meticulously record everything they say he does, what he likes, what makes him angry. You build up a detailed picture of this entity, Phenomene, based entirely on their accounts.
So you're studying the belief in Phenomene, the structure of that belief, without endorsing Phenomene himself.
Exactly. Phenomene, for the scientist, is an intentional object, a construct that exists within the belief system of the tribe.
And applying that back to consciousness, the self, the inner me, the little person watching the Cartesian theater, that's our personal Phenomene.
That's the radical step, yes. It's not some intrinsically real homunculus sitting inside. It's a theoretical construct that our brain creates about its own operations.
So the self is, what did you call it, the center of narrative gravity.
Right. It's an abstraction, a really useful one. Think about physics. The center of mass of an object isn't a specific physical part, is it?
No, it's a calculated point, a theoretical convenience.
Exactly. It simplifies calculations for a complex system. The self is like that. It's the brain's way of creating a convenient reference point, the apparent owner of all the perceptions, decisions, memories that bubble up from these parallel processes. It brings coherence.
So we don't have a self that then spins narratives.
It's more like the continuous narrative spinning creates the sense of self. We are constantly weaving the story about who we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it, using language. And that story, that ongoing self-narration, is the self, in large part. It's the product, not the source.
Okay, let's shift to how this incredibly complex system, this self-spinning machine, could have evolved. We know the brain is massively parallel And crucially, it's plastic it learns.
Yeah.
How does that learning ability actually drive evolution?
That brings us to something called the Baldwin effect. It's a really neat idea about how learning can sort of speed up evolution.
How does that work?
Well, imagine some members of a species are flexible enough, plastic enough, to learn a new trick that helps them survive. Maybe using a tool or figuring out a new food source. A good trick, let's call it.
Okay, a learned behavior.
Right. Now, if there's genetic variation in the population for how easily individuals learn that trick or how well they do it once learned, well, the ones who learn it faster or better have a big advantage.
They survive and reproduce more.
Exactly. So natural selection starts favoring the genes that make learning that specific trick easier or more efficient. The learned behavior itself creates the selection pressure.
So it's not that the learned skill itself is passed down genetically, like Lamarck thought.
No, it's that the aptitude for learning that skill gets genetically favored because the skill itself is so beneficial. Evolution races to sort of hardwire the predispositions that support the learned behavior.
And for humans, the ultimate good trick was language.
You could definitely argue that. Language, acquired culturally, acts almost like installing new software on the brain's biological hardware.
Software? How so?
Well, crucially, it allows for auto-stimulation, talking to yourself, either out loud or, more often, silently, internally.
The inner monologue.
Exactly. This internal chatter, which Dennett calls the Joycean machine after James Joyce's stream of consciousness writing, this seems to be a huge part of what we experience as human consciousness.
And what does that inner voice do for us, evolutionarily speaking?
Oh, massive amounts. It allows for complex planning, rehearsing scenarios, reflecting on past actions, controlling impulses. It gives us a way to manage our own thoughts, to direct our attention. It helps us remember not just what we decided, but how we got there, which is crucial for learning and fixing errors.
So we talk to ourselves not just to figure out what we think, but almost to construct what we think and manage the process.
Yes, it provides a level of executive control and reflective capacity that's just not available otherwise. It bootstraps our cognition.
Okay, so putting it all together, the feeling of a single unified self watching a sequential show is a useful illusion, a center of narrative gravity. Our sense of time is constantly being edited retrospectively, and our inner monologue, our stream of thought, is like a powerful software program running on the brain's hardware, a program we got through culture and learning.
That's a pretty good summary. Consciousness in this view is more like a virtual machine created by the brain's operations. The really mysterious-seeming parts, the unity, the sequence, the self, they aren't separate things, but emergent properties, robust illusions generated by the system for very practical adaptive reasons.
And the richness we feel in our experience, that's not necessarily a rich inner copy of the world.
It's more likely the richness of the actual world being available to the brain's various processing systems when needed. Think about the blind spot in our vision.
Right, we don't notice it.
The old Cartesian view might guess the brain carefully fills in the missing pixels with the surrounding pattern for the inner viewer. But multiple drafts suggest something simpler. Nothing needs to be filled in. The brain just ignores that spot. No part of the system is asking for information from there, so the gap is simply neglected. No fiction is needed.
It's not patching a hole, it's just not looking there. The mystery dissolves into function.
It often does. And it means we really need to let go of thinking consciousness is this binary all-or-nothing thing. Either you have the magic light on, or you don't. Instead, we should see things like the capacity for suffering or joy or complex thought, the things we care about morally, as existing on a spectrum. They're properties that emerge from complex systems, and they can coexist perfectly well with a purely physical, functional understanding of how brains work. No magic required.
The mind might not be magic, but it's certainly mind-bendingly complex. Which leaves a final thought, maybe, for you listening. If language and culture acts like software upgrades for our brains, what software, what ideas, assumptions, cultural narratives, even habits of how you talk to yourself might be running your show right now, shaping your experience without you even realizing it's happening?